Hello and welcome to more life lessons from an emotional awareness expert. Now, I'm going to give you a little warning. Today is a very sensitive topic. So if you do find yourself very easily triggered, please, I'm happy for you to leave and come and watch another video another day. This is about an occasion a few years ago where I offered a safe space for somebody to talk. And safe space is important because sometimes when people confront us in difficult times, it's hard to open up. And safe space is about an emotional space, somebody who listens without judgment, without criticism, without interrupting, and just lets you speak whatever's going on in your mind, in your heart, in your gut, just lets it all come out. And there was an occasion about 3 years ago, I'd taken somebody to a hospital appointment. And because of all the lockdowns and COVID, I'd had to wait in the car park. As I sat there, a young lady came out of the hospital carrying some paperwork, and she sat on a bench. She put her head down and she started to cry. She used up her tissue, put it in a pocket, eventually got another tissue out and continued to cry. And as she finished using that tissue, she tucked the paperwork down under her and she drew her knees up onto the bench and hugged her knees and continued to cry. By this time, several people had walked past and just left her sat there. And so I figured it was time for me to step forward and do something. It was a choice. But I prepared a packet of tissues that I had. So I took one of those travel packs out and I pulled one out ready to offer, just as a lot of people would, like with a cigarette packet. And so I got out of the car, I crossed the car park, and I just held the packet out without saying a word so she could take a tissue. She wiped the tears, blew a nose, and said, "Thank you." At that point, I just took the opportunity to say very quietly, "Would you like me to sit with you?" There was no other expectation in this at all, other than for her to not be alone. And her response was, "Yes, please. I'd like that." And so I sat beside this young lady, and as I did, I inadvertently caught in my eye one word on the top of her paperwork before she tucked it out of sight, and that was miscarriage. She was just being dismissed from hospital after a miscarriage. So now I realised just how sensitive this topic was. I didn't need to know any more. And as I sat there, she started to open up and tell me that that is why she'd been in the hospital. She also declared to me that she'd been abused by a relative for many years, and that at just the age of 16, she had met a boyfriend, fallen in love, and had fallen pregnant. And she had pinned her hopes on the belief that having this child would mean for the first time in her life she could feel true love, like what it was like to really love somebody else as well as them love her. And then she was worried about her relationship because of the miscarriage and so on. And the thoughts going through her head were horrendous for a 16-year-old to deal with. Now, this was 3 years ago, and I've never told this story before. And I'm only saying it now because I know she will be over 18. It's not a raw topic if she sees this. I don't even know who she is. But it was time, I thought, for me to tell the story, because it could inspire other people to help other people, but also other young ladies going through miscarriage at an early age, that this is the advice that I gave her. I said to her, "I'm so sorry, obviously, for everything she'd been through and for going through the miscarriage. And I do know how difficult that is because I've had a miscarriage myself in the past, and it does affect you emotionally for many, many months. There are a lot of nightmares that come with it, a lot of physical changes in the body, and it can affect relationships. And for mine, at that time, the person I was engaged to, I did end up separating from." And so I sort of consoled her through all of that and then said, but I want you to imagine this, right? You don't have to pin all of your love on that child yet, on that potential of a child. I said, I can tell that one day you have so much love and compassion, you will be a fantastic mother. This is what I told her. I said, but in the meantime, I said, I was 25 before I had children. You're very young. I said, at 16, you're very young. You have time. You've missed out on a lot of your childhood because of what's happened. I said, I would like to inspire you to go out and live your life first. Go out and create some experiences, have some adventures, do some nice things, and look after yourself first. I said, and then when you have a family, later down the line, I want you to imagine that when you finally have a child that is old enough to tuck into bed and tell a bedtime story, that you can now tell them your stories of the things you've done and the fun that you've had. And as she sat there and she processed that, there was like a sense of comfort that settled into her in that thought. And I could see the shift in her energy. She turned and flung her arms around me, gave me a mighty hug, and called me an angel. And at this point, a car turned up, which she went and got into. Her ride had arrived. So for me, that was a very sensitive day. I hope she's okay, and I hope she truly followed that advice. But even if she didn't, I hope that just in me telling this story, that it inspires somebody else to either share that hope and inspiration with others or to find it in themselves going through this difficult time. Because coming out of teenagers, you have a life to live first. Don't pin all of your hopes on finding love through having a baby. Because believe me, even having a child at a little bit older age, it is very hard work. It can be very stressful, and at times they can break your hearts. But at the end of the day, when you get life right for yourself first, you then have that to take through with your family and a much better chance of happiness for all of you. So if anybody is going through that, I have an upcoming webinar soon, which is going to be about how to hug yourself, all about self-love and self-care. This is a webinar that's going to be repeated, so I'm not going to say a date today, but check the link below to see when the next one is, or if there's any free courses on my website that could support you, for example, mindfulness, self-care, emotional awareness. But that's my life lesson from an emotional awareness expert for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share, whatever you can do to help share the inspiration. Let's keep talking about emotional awareness, self-awareness, mental health, all of the topics that are going to make this world a better place by us being in it and sharing these stories. Thank you very much. Bye bye until tomorrow.